Let's do it.
All right. Welcome to the Cannabis Connection. I am your host, Christopher Carr. Thank you, Santa Cruz, for tuning in to another edition of Santa Cruz Cannabis Talk Radio. Hope you're having a beautiful mid-July, beautiful summertime. My guest today is Michael Mendo Mikey Lyon. Was born and raised on the Mendocino coast in the heart of the Emerald Triangle. He first started cultivating at the age of 15 and developed the love and passion for the plant, and has turned into a career in cannabis industry. Michael has primarily been cultivating indoors since 2006. He and his partner launched the brand Woodwide in 2019. Known for his pheno-hunting and breeding projects, Michael and Woodwide bring a unique plant-first focus to the California recreational market. Welcome, Michael, to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Chris. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man, it's my pleasure. And tell the people where you're joining us today.
I am joining you from the beautiful Fort Bragg, California, here at the Woodwide facility on the Mendocino coast, about quarter mile off the Pacific Ocean.
Righteous, man. That's a beautiful, blessed spot, man. Beautiful. Thanks for jumping
It's
in.
incredible. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Nice to be here.
Yeah. So let's just start with your roots, man. Like, what were some of the first experiences or gardens or crops or kind of cultivars that kind of ignited this passion and this path for you? Because you've been taking care of some really award-winning, phenos, and we're going to get to all that, but I just want to learn a little bit about your roots with the plant.
Yeah, so growing up here in Mendocino, it was back I grew up in the 80s and early 90s, and people didn't really talk about cannabis that much. Everyone knew that Mendocino and Humboldt and Trinity were the Emerald Triangle, but when you came to town, you didn't see much signs of it. And it was definitely Humboldt was more out there, and they were more of the ones that got a lot of the recognition, and there was just a lot more open with what they were doing, it felt like. And I was probably about 14 years old when I started to smoke cannabis, and I knew that it was something that I wanted to do. I remember when people would come over to those parties, I would always smell that smell. I loved the smell. I loved smelling my dad's proto pipe. I was just always intrigued by the plant. My parents weren't really growers. I was a plant or two in the backyard, but I got to see a little bit of it at my friends' houses, and then got to experience the guerrilla growing and just the couple backyard plants. It wasn't, this is pre 96, pre the 215 days when people were not really able to openly cultivate. So I was able to I just kind of developed my love for the plant. Everything we did was from seed. I didn't even know about clones. And we just you could kind of recognize everyone's own cultivars based on how they grew and the seed they made from the previous years. And, a lot of the bags that we got were kind of like mixed flour. It wasn't so much.
Sure.
Yeah, I didn't even really believe in strains for a long time, because it was just like, what are you talking about strains? Like within seed there's similarities, but it was pretty open broadcast breeding.
Amazing. Do you remember if there were, the seeds that they kept, were they just proprietary kind of family lines, or was there anything kind of recognizable in I'm assuming this is probably early 90s sun grown?
Yeah, I felt like it was really kind of family lines, like what people did. Like my friend had this purple people eater, and there was always that stuff that I always thought smelled like carrot tops, which was more of like that train wreck, that sativa. There was different, you got the vibes of certain sweeter stuff, but where I was at, it felt like it was just kind of who's grow and what they made seeds of again year after year, and they were breeding to keep those things alive, but it was really I don't know, you could really tell like who grew it based on the looks and the flavors, and everyone, the terroir was like a real thing. Like everyone's little valley, a lot of it was guerrilla grown, so everyone, you could kind of tell, but there were some flavors that you could recognize.
Did you have a mentor or was it a trial by fire? I know for sure, like in my experience, it was a little bit of both. Definitely like worked on grows and kind of was shown the ropes or shown the approach of some of the like employers that taught me how to do it. And then of course, popping my own beans and getting in the soil and getting my crops going. But do you remember those kind of like early? You mentioned Gorilla Grow and some of that, like, I love that too. In Santa Cruz, like we have these little zones. We're second smallest county, but there's like Happy Valley and Boulder Creek and Bonnie Doon and then
Hmm.
South County and there's little like nuances too. You can be like, oh, this is granny grown, oh, this is some patweed, or this is some Smiley's green, and it's kind of fun. But those were definitely different parts of the county and different like mentors too.
Yeah, I mean, when I first started growing, my brother's 10 years older than me, and he had moved back, or he'd grown up in Walnut Creek actually, and he moved up here, and I was like 15 years old, and he started kind of growing a little bit in the backyard, and that was kind of my impetus to like, ooh, take a couple plants and move them off the side of the property, and bring them back my 1 gallon old milk jugs full of water every day and kind of hand water these things. And that's how I kind of started. And then the older crew, the people that graduated Mendo in the 70s, they had been growing for a long time. So I ended up breaking my leg in college and coming back right when I was 20 years old. And that year I got to like dig some big holes in the backyard and use these guys' recipes with all the stuff that we put into the holes and start really manipulating the plants and like tying them over and having that experience where I was like kind of growing in my backyard. And I got to do that while in San Luis Obispo too. I started growing in the big holes, single plants, big deep watering, a lot of like trellising and keeping the plants up with like mesh and stuff like that. And then it was like when I graduated college and I was able to come back home and all my friends, everyone was growing indoors, and it was like 2006. It was just on. And that's when I really got the mentorship where I was able to go to a lot of other people's cultivations and like instantly had 30 years of knowledge because everyone of my friends had been growing for 4 or 5 years, and I was able to go to everyone's spot. I was given the kind of the recipe, the big hand water recipe that we were using, and everyone was kind of growing either Mendo Purps and Grape Ape or the Bubba Kush that came around, and we called that the U2 around here. Like, oh, you want to grow that U2, And that's where I really got my mentorship, was to be able to go to everyone else's facilities, and we were all just kind of learning and round to round, building off of what other people were doing, and just kind of each helping each other level up.
I love that. Yeah, that's very much. Yeah, my mentor taught me the ropes. A 12 lighter 2 car garage in Santa Cruz, and it was there was their own recipe, their own kind of system, and it was like we grew
Mhm.
the Platinum Kush was one of our big breadwinners. Bubba Kush though, yeah, take us back. Was that something you got real familiar with, or the Mendo? I'd love to hear about some of those those like bouncing around the U2 or just the kind of breadwinners of that time, because 2006 was that like that perp yeah,
Yeah.
it was that time. It was a special time.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it started with the Mendo Purps and the Grape Ape. They weren't the biggest yielders, but I remember my very first round we did. I got the same thing. I kind of got given the keys to. We were built a brand new 12 lighter. I got given the keys. We always grew with those like parabolic hoods where you had the vertical hanging light bulb, and so the light would go to the sides and then
Yeah.
come back down. And because we were always converting these like old rooms that had like 8 foot ceilings, right? So it was really hard. The ceiling height was like always a thing. So that those hoods allowed you to get your over your plants really nicely, right? And that was just kind of the way that we developed here in Mendo. And then we were doing these every like 10-gallon pots, and we were buying the individual casters, and we were really like worried about like plant counts, right? Like that was a big thing. Like, okay, if we were going to get in trouble, we didn't want to have over 100 plants. So we were doing 4 to 6 plants a light, huge plants, getting them nice and big. And yeah, I mean, we were instantly. I think my very first grow was like, I did the Grape Ape, and we hit 2 pounds of light. And I was like, okay, we can do this. And then I thought I had the U2 at the time, and I didn't. I realized pretty quick. And then we got the U2, the Bubba, and we just kind of ran that one until the wheels kind of fell off. We had that one down super well, how we cloned it and vegged it. It turned a 12 lighter into another 9 lighter, of which I was like a third partner on each one. And it was plenty. It was plenty for us. I had lots of time to fish and do all these other things. And then when that one went to like $2,500 a pound, 28, we switched over to the OG. And so we learned the OG, and we had the Miyagi OG, the Mike's OG, the Miyagi. And yeah, we crushed that one for a long time. And that was incredible just to see the soil grown OGs hand watered every other day. Kind of used our same recipe again, and that worked really well for a long time. And then I took that OG and bred it by this Maui that I had, and we created the Maui OG. We ran that one for a long time. And then that's when I started buying seeds kind of in 2015 and doing pheno hunts and finding our own things. And that's, I think, the Viper cookies was the very first thing that I found that was like super special, that was like brandable. And that was kind of the start of a new era. And, I started finding a lot more things after that. But the Viper cookies is one of those strains that I have still to this day. It's like I have a half table going right now in the
Wow.
cultivation. Yeah.
Wow, man. That's brilliant. Yeah, I love to dive in a little bit there. So you started intentionally selecting and crossing and then getting into the kind of quivers of other breeders in 2015. When you're pheno hunting, can you speak a little bit to your thought process or your approach to finding that brandable kind of unicorn, or like what about that Viper cookies, and maybe the story, because maybe not everyone's familiar with the Viper cookies, but yeah, I did some due diligence, and it's, yeah, even in your past year of photos on IG, there's some mention there and some love.
Yeah. I mean, it was just a stunning plant, and it was just like one of those ones that way you were growing, it just, your eyes were drawn to it, and the smell and everything in the room was just incredible. It was like, oh my God, I loved this Viper cookies. And at the same time as I was hunting that, I was hunting something else. And I remember having it and being just so excited for it, and just like, oh my God, this is the next thing. It was just so beautiful and so resinous and smelled so good. And you could just tell it was going to be amazing. And I remember like having, oh, I was trying to get enough clones of it to run another room. And I remember having a bunch of these clones, and I was running them, and I had a couple that didn't look as good. And I had the room going. And when I was about halfway through that room that I was like so excited for, being all Viper cookies, I realized that the ones that I had really liked, the 2/3 of that I had selected for, was actually like a cult classic seed, like the Tony Clifton or something like that. And the 1/3 that I had in there that I had to put in just because was actually the Viper cookies. And the Viper cookies is a smaller plant. So I was lucky that I actually still had it alive. And I just remember that was like the most painful 3-month grow, where I was like, oh my God, I'm still not going to have a whole room of Viper cookies. And I had to wait. And by the time I realized that I still had it alive, and I made sure I kept it, and then was able to get up to a spot where was able to do full rooms of these little 6 light rooms. I remember just sitting up at night, just being like, oh, I have to wait. I have to wait. The world,
It's
I can't wait to
torturing.
share this one with the world. Yeah, I was like tortured,
Wow, man.
but it was fun. Yeah, it's a lot of nights. A lot of times after the family goes to bed, just go into the rooms and hanging out with the plants, and those are always really good times.
Yeah, man, it is. It's special. It's like a little sanctuary, or you transport yourself, just you in the grow, you and the plants. I mean,
Hmm.
yeah, that's yeah, that's so. And when you were buying seeds, was there kind of going with your gut? You were kind of thinking about what would work in the market, or how was your approach of exploring? Because it is just a vast. Even in 2015, I remember we opened a dispensary here in Santa Cruz, Kind Peoples, and we had a huge genetics department, and that was a big part of our offering, because that was pre Prop 64. So we were fueling a lot of, let's say, 12 lighters, 6 to 12 lighters locally, or larger farms, or grows,
Hmm.
in the mountains, or out in the on the hills. in the hills. And so like, yeah, the seeds and the beans was a big part. We had, Bodie was from South County, and so we had a lot of Bodie seeds kind of talking around. But yeah, it was a lot, it's just a lot to get through. And what were you guys,
Oh,
were you, criteria of what you were looking for and how you went about checking out new beans? Because a pheno hunt is a lot to invest
yeah.
in.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. Like when so I'm married to a Canadian girl, a girl from Montreal, and I was dating her. And when we first started dating, I remember always looking in the back of the High Times, and they're always like, "Yeah, seed banks, this," and they had all these cool seeds, And it was like, oh, one of the spots was like in Montreal. I was like, oh, so I went to visit her family for like the second or third time. I was like, oh, we got to go to the seed bank, and it was like this dingy little basement place, and the guy was in there and he sold me some seeds, and I was like, oh, I felt really weird about it. I remember going home and growing those seeds, and it was the most dog shit weed that I ever grew. And I was just like, I was like, oh, these big seed bags, and oh, High Times is so cool. And that's when I realized, like, dude, everything that you have access to and everything in your backyard is 10 times better than this. And this is for people that have no access. And, just like when I used to look at High Times back in the day and see the pictures of plants and stuff and be like, everything we see every day is like way cooler than these three pictures that they give us. But so yeah, when 2015 came along and I started buying seeds, I was using my friend Mac. He was really into the whole breeder thing, and he was teaching me a lot about who to look for and these strains. And being in Mendocino, are pretty far removed from what's the hype stuff. And I'd hear about stuff, but I'd never see it. And I wasn't that guy running down to the city and experiencing it and wanting to know. I had copious amounts of weed at my disposal, and I was just like, I wasn't playing the hype game as much. So I was listening to what my friends were saying, like, oh, you got to try these things. So I just started investing and buying different things. And I've always looked at the seed game as kind of like lottery tickets. Like, yeah, okay, some of these things are expensive, and you're probably not going to find anything. And I bought some Mac. I remember buying a couple of different packs of Mac seeds at like $500 a piece and getting in the hype. And um, I tried a lot of stuff, and I kind of narrowed it down to the breeders that I really liked. I was there at Emerald Cup, standing in line, trying to get things from people. Um, and yeah, I just kind of realized, I call it like sifting for diamonds. Like I've kind of realized that, like, I'm going to go through a lot of this stuff, and most of these things aren't going to be anything, but I'm looking for that one little one that stands out. And I kind of understood that it's kind of playing the lottery. And how we used to grow in those 10-gallon pots. It was a big investment too, to put phenos and be like, here you go. This is, a quarter of a light basically per plant. We were doing
Yeah.
4 plants a light.
Yeah.
So
Time and
it was
energy
a big
and
investment.
money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I wouldn't go through that many in time. And I'd always notice too that, like, either there was something in that seed pack that was like really beautiful, or and there was like three things that you were like, wow, these are hard to keep, or it was like nothing special. And I just kind of narrowed it down, started finding the people that I liked. And I bought way too many seeds. And from 2015, when I started really buying seeds like crazy, and on auctions, I still have a ton of them. And I continue to buy seeds and make seeds. And now I have 2 refrigerators full of seeds and probably 3 lifetimes worth of pheno-hunting to do. And I'm constantly making seeds. I'm making seeds now. And yeah, it's kind of an overwhelming thing where you look like, oh, I should really do all this. And yeah, I mean, it's hard. It's hard to pick what to do in this industry. There's so many options. There's so many things we could be doing all the time.
I feel that, man. Yeah. Well, and think about 2015 to now, just how, or even pre 2015, the social media angle, or how technology, how we connect as a cannabis communities, really come a long way from, let's think about like Dead Tour and Lots, and then forums, right? Like 420 forums, Breed Bay or whatnot, to social media, Instagram or what, it's just really, in Discord, everything's really just crazy how things have developed. I love what you said about your friends too, and sharing with your friends. And I'd love to learn a little bit about your palate. I imagine, you have, because you're in that Fort Bragg, Mendo abundance, what over time really kind of turned you on, or what were you looking for as far as, like, I imagine, bag appeal, of course, and especially doing so well with something like Grape Ape, nose and flavor on the smoke. But I pursued chatting with you for the Dutch treat, and that's kind of a
Mhm.
classic. That's kind of like a European, building block heirloom. Everyone's got some stories about similar to your seed bank experience of going abroad to Montreal. I've had some funky Amsterdam seed bank experiences too, and you're so right. You can go across the world thinking you're finding something special, but a lot of the magic is in your uncle's drawer in an old film canister, black and gray film canister. So, yeah,
Absolutely.
I'd love to hear your thoughts on your palate and and then segue a little bit into the Dutch treat and how you found that.
Yeah. For me, we used to always just smoke outdoor from what everyone had. And I remember finding some of those things that were just like so delicious and things that would taste like that they smelled. So I kind of really always liked floral and fruity stuff. And then I smoked, as I grew Bubba for years, of course, I smoked that nonstop. And that was a real earthy, cushy, and very strong flavor. And then I got into OG, another really strong one. And then I got into Viper Cookies, which is another strong weed. And I started liking to go more back to the flavor. And I remember those first days of the Mendo Purps. And I just remember like when we would all get together, like the boys would all get together and say, play cards, and everyone would kind of we bring a bunch of weed out on the table. You'd watch the stuff that got smoked first. Like they all had a bunch of really good weed, but it'd be like we would just keep rolling up one until it was gone, kind of, And it was like, okay, finding those special things and finding the flavors that really I love. But then you notice that not everyone likes the same thing. And as the branding started getting a thing, like the Viper cookies, we cooked up with our local guys Madrone, and they were able to really kind of make that one of their flavors. And they did a really good job of being early branders, and that we really ran with those guys for a long time. And putting that strain out there. And I was never on any of these forums or anything. Like, we just were not in technology. We had all the people around us that we could talk to. And when we wanted to talk business, we got together and talked in person, and did nothing on the phone. We'd have to drive half an hour to have a conversation. And um, we'd all congregate and share our buyers, right? And just everyone, even the grandmas were growing a 2 liter in their closet just to have an extra 3 or 4 pounds a month to make cover the mortgage and then some. So yeah, it was like everyone kind of got known for a strain too. There was a snow cap in the very beginning. It was kind of one of the first like 3 pound delight strains, and was out here in Mendocino, people growing that. And obviously, you go up to Humboldt and they had the train wreck, arcaded train wreck, and every little area kind of got known for something that was their own little specialty. So I always wanted to kind of go and select towards the kind of floral stuff and more of that dessert stuff, because it felt like we didn't have that. You kind of saw the whole market go towards like a myrcene caryophyllene thing when everyone was able to start really selecting. And then when it came time for branding, we realized, I think it was really talking with Alec Dixon from SC Labs saying, "Hey, listen, Mike, I
Yeah.
know that you're not a huge into the terpenoline, but there's an 8% market demand for terpenoline strains, and there's a 4% supply." Like, okay, like yeah, so this stuff is like people want it, and people aren't growing it. And I think I was in the local little Eggheads, a restaurant one day, and I saw my friend who was known for the Dutch treat, and that was his thing. And the cannabis thing kind of dried up around here, and people weren't growing. And before, I don't think I would have ever been able to have access to that. And then they saw that we were continued growing. I saw him and said, "Hey, would you ever be willing to let me try out that Dutch treat?" And he said, "Yeah, I think I'd like to see someone else with it and keep it alive." And that was kind of it. We started running the Dutch treat. I remember we ran a half table of it, and it didn't come out that great. I wasn't that into it. And we went to like our first Hall of Flowers, and I had a bunch cloned, and we weren't sure if we were going to run it again. And I saw the response from like a poorly grown round of the Dutch treat on our part, and everyone was freaking out. They hadn't seen anything like it in a long time. And I was like, okay. I remember calling back to the cultivation and being like, hey guys, do not kill those clones. Like we have to make another run with that one because everyone's loving it. And that strain has a pretty good story too. There was like one of our local surf shop owners. His friend brought that cut over from Maui in like 2013, 2014 in like like a salad bin, like a bin of salad. He made some cuttings and put it in there. Flew over with it and uh, brought it here, rooted the cuttings, and that was kind of like a staple in our little area for a while. And then when the 215 days went away and people weren't able to go in and like sell to the dispensaries, it just kind of, and everything was like bulk market and everyone wanted just candy, candy, candy. It got to a spot where you couldn't even sell that strain, right? No one wanted to buy that bulk. No one wanted to smell anything like that. So it really was able to survive based on retail sales and being able to grow a little bit and getting it into jars and getting it into people's hands. And then, if we're going down to the Cal State Awards here, and that Dutch treat just won 2 silvers for osamine and terpenoline. So, there's definitely a place for it.
Oh man, and I think you're gonna be surprised in the pre-roll category too, man. You guys, yeah,
Oh yeah,
that's it, yeah. Like the flower itself, but also, yeah, just keep your eyes and be ready because there's some exciting things coming. And yeah, it was refreshing. I think that's what it, to your point, or the Alec Dixon thing. Like, yeah, I remember like any Jack smell, any terpenoline dominant, it was just so hard to move. Yet it's so funny how things come full circle, right? There was so much talk of, and just bad slang about Blue Dream, but it comes back around. And even in the mountains here, people were asking me for Blue Dream. It's just classic. It's like, oh, I used to not be able to move any of that, and now that's what people are asking me for. And I think the same is kind of that nostalgia of rekindling like some of those, like you mentioned Bubba, and that's like one of the first time I saw my cousin like shiver with smoking weed together. It's like we were kids smoking Bubba, probably from Mendo, and it was a big notable. I'll never forget that truck ride home in Apple Hill, on North Canyon Road, and looking back at my cousin Tommy, and he's just shivering with happiness, with euphoria from some quality Bubba. And I think something about that Dutch treat really, it captured the memory and the nostalgia and just the hearts of the judges too. It's a really special. It's as special as Northern Lights and Haze, man. Those are two founding lines.
Yeah, and it's an amazing cultivar too. There's like so many different expressions of it, and it's one of those things. We have a half table going in, and we we have to like we give it like an 8 days of veg or less. You have to like flip that thing so small because it doesn't like triple, it like quadruples or quintuples in size from flip. It goes. So it's just one of those equatorial kind of strains, but it's incredible. I thought we would never be able to actually finish it indoors correctly. We've always kind of harvested it early, and now we've been messing with some of our spectrums. And for the first time ever, this last round, like we grew it, and it was like as ripe as I've ever seen it at harvest earlier than we normally do too. So I was like, okay, there's some, yeah, the spectrum the spectrum tuning that's going to be coming out here in the next couple of years. I think we're going to learn a lot about what we can do with cannabis.
Yeah, that's firing me up, man, because that's pretty cool. Because I love how you're speaking to it as just as a cultivar too, and it makes sense. Yeah, if you flip it early, it's the equatorial lines in it. It's in its DNA to just keep going and crushing, and it's fun to think about that.
It's a wild strain. Yeah, it's so enjoyable to watch grow too. She just has no quit to her. Just a big vine, and definitely, you see it. There's no denying it's sativa with those skinny little leaflets. And yeah, it's got that smell. It's just, being in, you go to Europe and there's so much amnesia, right? Everyone's the amnesia, whether it is all amnesia or what. It's all called amnesia haze, basically. Right. And but yeah, I mean, I was just over in Amsterdam, and I did see a bunch of other different hazes. But I think the Dutch treat special is because it's like you get the haze and you get that smell, but it's also beautiful flower. I think some stuff is it definitely has a different morphology that if you had that morphology on something else, people would be like, "Oh, this is foxtaily," and they would kind of like pick it apart. And we've always noticed from the very beginning is that people had a lot more forgiveness on the morphology of that one because they were used to it and they'd seen it. And if it got a little fingery, it's just like if someone had came out with a sour diesel bud that was like fingery and kind of crazy looking, they wouldn't they'd be stoked on it and they wouldn't be like, oh no,
Yeah.
this looks weird. I'm gonna pay you less because this is all off. It looks overfed. You're like, no, come on, you guys have no idea.
Well, and it's refreshing because it's becoming harder. That's part of it too. Is like the preservation of the heirloom varietals like Northern Lights, like Haze, or like even Diesel's becoming like true Diesel. Is
Mm-hmm.
it's becoming kind of rare. And so yeah, it is exciting, especially with like more people becoming a little more sophisticated or looking for connoisseur excellence, and like to what you're speaking about, spectrum tuning and like flipping it at 8 days and knowing that it's going to quintuple in size throughout the bloom phase. That takes rounds of experience and a certain level of expertise and excellence, and it's wonderful to see true sativas, right, be included, because you see a lot of things on shelves, but it's not quite, even things,
Yeah.
judging for California Cannabis, where I'm like, the packaging, especially with like pre-rolls as a judge, everything's coming pretty labeled, right? It's not like a blind flower in the jar
Mm-hmm.
judging experience. So you get to see what the consumer experiences, and there's a little bit of a cognitive dissonance, but yeah, something like Dutch Treat it was just a shelf above on its own level. And I think you guys are going to be, really pleasantly surprised in how it's received at the awards. And there's a lot to
Ah,
celebrate. Yeah, I commend you on
awesome.
keeping it going, man, and taking that.
Yeah.
That's the Maui story is amazing too. Like this thing has come a long way to come full circle at the California Cannabis Awards.
100%. And I talked to my friends over in Maui that are growing fire farms over in Maui, and they're really doing amazing stuff. And they're like, oh yeah, they know there's still some good, there's still some brothers out there growing those strains, still that same one. It's like it's cool to hear, and yeah, it's like knowing that it's the same cut, it's the one. And when every time I go into the surf shop, my boy's like, hey, you still got that, and he's always reminding me about how how long they did that and the stories, and it's a nostalgia thing. It's like still around, and it's crazy to think that like there's so many people that are like really big in the cannabis industry now that never got to experience those things, right? And people that are 25 years old that you're like, oh my god, I've been out of college for or out of high school for over 25 years. Like
Well, you're sharing a bit of like history too, like from love from Maui, fire farms, big ups, and then the brethren that brought it, in the salad container, rooted it, and then your homie that kept it going despite those tough times when you couldn't sell any terpenoline, and big ups to like the cannabis connection with Alec Dixon, SC Labs, and that insight,
uh-huh.
and then you guys taking it and putting your love into it, and then providing that to a 25 or 20 something year old that is probably going to be at this California State Fair. They're getting a little taste of cannabis history. And it is being celebrated with some of the best cannabis of California, which is arguably, some of the finest flower in the world, man. It's a beautiful thing to commend you guys on, and continue to celebrate. And I think that pre-roll was a one of a kind branded thing from Joy Ridge Farms. Can you speak a little bit to your relationship? I want to talk about some of your brethren and sistren in the area of like, North Bay, Mendo, because those guys too did. I think they grew it, right? Is that right for that product?
Yeah. So North Bay, or I'm sorry, yeah, they're in the North Bay, but my Joy Ridge Farms, I was actually visiting there yesterday. Some,
Oh,
really
cool!
good,
So cool.
yeah, yeah. They have, they're doing acres of canopy now, and they're kind of doing it in their own ways. They grow these huge mega plants, and it's refreshing for me to go talk to them and see different business models, and they're really like you said, the blue dream. These guys concentrate on the things that like really do well and like that actually have good yield. And here I am, I've been chasing all these little special strains, and that's awesome too. But there's also something about like growing things that I pay the bills. And so when I come across things, I do a lot of pheno-hunting. And so when I come across things that are like really special, I really started with Flynn from Sweet Sisters Farms is they have a spot out in Deep East Compshe. And he started running some of my phenos that I had found, like the Mendo Crumble, and finding things that I was like, okay, these things work really good for me indoor. How do they do outdoor? And I was really, really kind of like shy of putting these things into people's gardens because, they have one shot for the year. And if you put some of my genetics out there and they happen to like mold really bad or they don't perform outdoors, I'd feel really horrible. But
Sure.
my friend
That's
Flynn
hard.
kind
Yeah.
of yeah, he took the risk and started putting some stuff out there. And it was kind of obviously, for indoor flower, we can't grow something that's big and totally leafy and it's hard to trim. And so I like the stuff that has, really nice spacing and has a high calyx to leaf ratio. And then you notice that when you kind of bring those things outdoors, they kind of do the same thing and you get this really nice big flower that looks a little bit different than some of these traditional outdoor strains that can be just like huge colas that are the whole size of your arms, right? And that, harder to trim. So yeah, started seeing that, and so I've been kind of putting some of my strains out there to some of my friends that I feel it could benefit them because it's hard. You want to share everything, but also if you let everything go out, then it's not special anymore in a way, right? If you just give it away and next thing you know, everyone's growing it, it's like, oh, it's really special, and then it gets overproduced, and then no one likes it anymore. So I've always realized that hey, I can help the people I know grow some of this stuff, make some names for these strains, and do it in an outdoor setting. It doesn't mess with my markets at all because I'm all indoor flower,
Yeah, man.
and it helps kind of build the name of a strain. And so when I find things that are like really special that I think will go well outdoors, I have a nice group of people, a contingent that I can have them try it indoors or outdoors and depth situations. And so, yeah, last year, one of those things was the Dutch treat, and I gave it to the Joy Rich guys. And
Wow.
the Dutch treat yeah, it wants to go long,
I
right? So
bet. Yeah.
it
Full
didn't,
term
it didn't
outside.
quite,
Yeah.
yeah, and it was a really early winter this last year. So the
Yeah.
rains came early, and I remember being like, "Oh man, I feel bad about that one." And so stuff if it doesn't get to like full size, you're gonna just put it into pre rolls, right? And
Oh
that
my
flower is so
God.
special.
It's still special,
That
man.
flower, yeah,
It still
yeah,
stood ahead above like other legend. I won't name names, but there was legendary things that sweep, let's say the Mendo Bowl. I mean, not Mendo, the MJ Bowl and last year's um, California Cannabis Awards, and I think it's just partially too, the nostalgia factor or just the yeah, it's kind of, I think it's a good sign that we as a cannabis community are looking to kind of get back to the roots and embrace diversity and
hmm
that Alec Dixon point of like, hey, there's just not a lot of supply of this terpinolene dominant cultivars or profiles. And I think a sativa high stands out too. And
absolutely.
and it
Yeah, I mean
really comes through.
that's like the cup of coffee. It's a coffee in the morning. That stuff is like gets you going.
Absolutely, man.
Really.
Yeah, and it's chronic too.
Oh
You feel
yeah.
yeah, it's heady, but you're clear and you're fired
hmm
up and it's summertime. Maybe that was part of it too, is we're evaluating product, in June for a July awards show. And so like
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
Dutch treat was a true treat. It lived up to its name and it kind of stood out just for, to your point, that pure, equatorial DNA came through in the experience, and a lot of the way you evaluate fine herb is the effects, and
Yeah.
giving it to, giving it to the farmer and to you and keeping these things alive, and to the homies from Maui that brought it over in the salad container. I love that story, dude.
Yeah, no, it's the truth too, and I get through half a joint of that stuff, and I'm like, I gotta go for a walk. Like I'm just like
Yeah.
instantly like I'm going out the gate. I'm getting off the property. I'm in the woods. Like, all right, guys, let's go.
I
If it's
got
wintertime, we're looking for mushrooms. If it's summertime, we're just cruising.
yeah, for judging, we had to I had a timer like every 2 hours I would try to reset and do something, try something new, because it's a lot of entries in a short window to
Mhm.
do the rubric and to do the work and to give every entry like my full attention. And I remember post Dutch Streak, I was home. I got a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old, and I was making dinner, and I did the exact same thing. I took a half joint, wrote down all my notes, scored it, and then instantly I was like, I gotta take out the trash. I gotta go do this, because I was just like, I was like stimulated. It was like I almost was like,
Yeah.
is my heart okay? Am I all right? But it was like, that's like what I love about herb, especially like a real sativa. And I hadn't felt that since I was like a kid, where I was like, let's go walk the driveway. Well, let's go do these chores outside. Like I needed to physically run it out.
Yeah. Do something. Yeah.
Yeah, man. And it's funny you mentioned that, because
Yeah.
it's true, man. And we're very in immersing dominant, bear cookie cross gelato runts. And so just to get that
Yeah.
pure, sativa vibe, it's a breath of fresh air, truly. And I think that's why we're celebrating it, and we'll continue to celebrate
Awesome.
all of these. Yeah, all of you. Another thing I
And,
want
and
to. Oh, go for it, please.
Oh well, yeah. That one is one of those that's crazy that there's like you don't have many of the older strains that really have the flavor translation and smoke. Like now everyone's judging things by ash color and how things smoke and how it combusts, and that's one of them that works that way. And luckily, and then you know, fortunately and unfortunately, that cultivar does test high, and that allows us to actually cultivate it for the California market. And you know, it's just I think we've just lost so much. We've lost so much because I might grow something that's absolutely incredible, and if it tests below 25%, I can't package it barely. I just it won't sell, and no one will
Yeah,
buy it.
that's so
And it's
sad.
it's so
Yeah,
unfortunate.
it's a
Everyone's like, "Oh, we
shame.
want Granddaddy Purps." Like, yeah, if you guys know we saw some 18% Granddaddy Purps, would you buy it? Like, no, people won't. It's it's just so sad to see how bottlenecked everything is, and I can come across flavors that are amazing, and there's some things that make it through like the Skittles or something, but man, it's an uphill work against the market to get something out there that doesn't have a test.
Yeah, no,
It's horrible.
it is horrible. I know there's no like easy solution or answer, but what are your thoughts? Do you think education? Do you think these conversations, like hearing from someone like you, and even like some of those old school, like we're talking about, yeah, you said GDP, Grape Ape, like a lot of purple varieties are kind of low, but we're omitting
Yeah.
the whole entourage effects of linalool and these concentrations of like special. It's the whole entourage effect. It's not just that high THC percentage that gets you lit up. And so, yeah, what do you think? Is it an education gap? Is it just over time, the consumer, the market? You said we're going against the market in some ways. Is the market need to grow up or become a little more enlightened?
Yeah, I wish that they could just not put on the THC numbers, right? Like I think they just need to like exclude that because there's no everyone asks the bud tender anyways, like, hey, what's this? What's this? And everyone has a different endocannabinoid system and it works differently. And like we don't buy alcohol based on how strong it is, right? Like
100%.
you some things are going to get someone else super high and someone else not. There's things that are 16% THC that's going to get you way more high than the 31% THC. I think if they could just exclude that and be like, hey, like when you drink whiskey, it's a different buzz than when you drink tequila, than when you drink, beer, or wine. They all have a little bit different effect, and we don't. Yeah, it just really, it's one of those things you can't not look. If that number's on there, you can't not look. And if you walk into the store and you're going to spend $50 on 3.5 grams of cannabis, you're going to say, how can I how can I justify buying this 20%er when there's a 30%er right here? Right. And it's just like, it doesn't matter. Even if it's not, it's the psychology. You can't help it. You
Yeah.
cannot help it. And people are not going to spend their money on that. And it's the test is everything, the test, that number is everything. It's just like when there's an accident on the side of the road and you've been stuck in traffic forever and you go right as soon as you get past the accident, everyone goes fast. And it's like, yeah, well, no one look at it, but it's like everyone stops and looks at it. You can't help it. You're going to stop and look, and you're going to cause a traffic jam.
Yeah, that's profound, man. You're right. Maybe there is a way to just not advertise those numbers so prevalently or so prominently, and maybe get a little more creative on what we display. Yeah, that's a good point, man. You're right, and it's human nature to kind of maximize potency for the cost. Like I get it.
Yeah.
You're right.
Just say
Human
like
nature.
this passes. Sure, this passes, right? This passes, and like we can all go try and find different labs that give us better testing or whatever. It's just one of those things. It's like, can we just have it pass?
I
And
love
it's
that.
I
Yeah,
just had
green
I
check
had a thing.
mark.
I had to call. Yeah, we just grew probably the nicest Dutch. This is funny because it's just grew the nicest Dutch tree. I had to call. I did some R&D tests on the potency, and I had to call the lab and be like, "Hey, I just got a 19% test on this Dutch treat, and it's the nicest, ripest Dutch treat I've ever grown. And I've got a whole history of tests from 24 to 33%. You know, it's like, what's up with this? Like all of a sudden,
Yeah.
I have the nicest round that I've ever done that I would be most proud of. And I can't put it in a package because all of a sudden it won't sell right now, you know, because
Jeez.
they just put in the scarlet letter of a 19%. And it's not my COA one, but like, really? So I'm like, what's up? And it's just, it makes no sense. It has totally out of sync with the historical numbers and everything I've ever seen. And yeah, it's like the kiss of death. And
Totally.
we're just bottlenecking our industry so much and getting away from so many things that could be so incredible, you know, such incredible smoke. So
Yeah, I
I don't know.
agree.
And then I'll grow something and I pheno hunt something and I'm like, oh man, this thing just tested 35% THC. But it doesn't smoke that great. And it's not that incredible of a flavor. So the whole team were like, we don't want to grow that. It's not like that amazing of a flavor, but I'm here trying to run a business. And I'm like, well, if I was just cared about money and just cared about business, I could run this one right away and it would come out with a 35% THC, 40%, 42% some cannabinoids, and it would sell like crazy, right? And we'd be able to feed our families and pay our bills better. And instead I package up stuff that's not as good and all of a sudden it sits in the distributor for 60 days, and next thing you know, I'm all the money I put into it, I'm basically giving that stuff away and doing it buy one get one. It's like, what am I doing? Like, I'm going after what smokes the best, what tastes the best, what's going to give the best experience, and I would be more rewarded if I just did the stuff with the highest numbers. So it's just
Wow.
weird. It's weird. It's
Yeah.
like, what am I doing it for? Am I doing it for the love of the plant, or am I doing this to run a business and make sure I keep all my employees paid and we continue to keep the lights on?
Yeah,
It's
man.
It's got to be some of both. But
Yeah, that's right.
yeah,
Yeah.
how do you marry that?
Oh, I feel that. No, I think there's some deeper conversation, especially on maybe policy lens of how do we advocate just for the pass, and maybe you're right. Take those numbers out of the equation, and then we might have a way more colorful and diverse marketplace. You might see things like Dutch Treat really rise. I think it's exceptional flower, even if it wasn't like the perfect winter or full outdoor season last year. Again, it was a
Yeah,
shelf above, and it's kind of like, let's get back to these more diverse crosses, right? Bring back Northern Lights crossed haze. I mean, that's important.
yeah. I
It,
mean, for me, a true winning cannabis strain is one that you smoke a joint, you have half a joint, you put it in the ashtray, you come back the next day and you fire that thing up, and you can taste exactly what strain it is. So much cannabis is like you're smoking it halfway down a joint, you're like, yeah, this is weed, but you're not smoking tobacco, you're not smoking mullein, you're like, this is herb, but you can't tell exactly what flavor it is because it's just smells like tastes like smoke, you know? And if we got rid of, like now that we have to do this like retail ID too, they've just made us put a thing where we have to have a unique identifier on every single package. So we have to like, get a QR code that's individual for every single eighth and goes back to the COA. It would be a perfect time for them to say, listen, let's take the numbers off. Anyone can scan this thing right here and see if they want to keep being THC driven. Cool. There's a unique identifier right here that goes back to every eighth, that goes back to the COA, and you can go look at the COA. But let's give people that option. Yes, you guys can still go and see if you're really that curious, but don't make it the first thing that they look at. The first thing, the first number. It's like tells you this. They put it up there on the menu. This is the name and this is the percentage. It's like the first identifier instead of saying like happy and the smells and the tastes. And we've noticed like in our naming conventions, when you name something that tells people more about the flavor of it or the color of it, it kind of helps sell it more than just, we do have some crazy names like, night squirrel and grumpy
Sure.
tiger
Yeah.
and things, because there is
Yeah.
something to the quirkiness of that too. That's like, it's fun, and I have a list of, 400 names for future strains this is my names, or when I come up with it, when I find a new strain and I'm like, oh, which one's going to get this name? Okay. So every time I'm stoned and I'm just in the shower, I'm writing stuff down on my notes app.
Yeah, I love that, man. Yeah, well, that's part of the joy of it. But I do, yeah, I think it's important to kind of emphasize experience, profile, terps, lineage. I love to know what went into something, right? That's something
Yeah.
cool. Like
Yeah.
I like to research that sometimes, even when it's kind of obscure. Like yeah, totally. Like Night Squirrel, Divine Gelato, Project 4516, like
Yep.
formerly Marilyn Monroe. I did that research because I was like, I'm going to talk to Michael. I want to know what this is. But that, that's me, and that's the other piece. Is a lot of people have different tastes and different approaches to their relationship with flower or hash or you name it. But I think there's a lot of other important enriching information than just these THC percentages. And to your point with the 19% Scarlet Letter, you've done it, and you've done it what you thought wasn't as good as what you just did, and that was in the 33 to 24, you name it. Like, it can vary, and there's so many
Yeah.
unique variables to what is going to determine your percentage of THC. And in my opinion, yeah, we need to maybe level up as a community and maybe on a regulatory level. I love what you're saying about like just a QR code. If people really want to get wonky and see those numbers, they can pursue it, but it's not the first thing at the point of sale. Or in these negotiations with distributors and retailers. I think it's really important to think about, experience and profile and effects.
And that QR code has took effect as of July 1st. Everything
Got it.
has to have that. So we snuck in. We got our last little ones out. We got it into the system before July 1st. But from now on, every single thing that goes out, every pre-roll, every single package has to have a unique identifier that can go back to that COA. So it's already, after any old flower that's been in the system is sold, within the next 6 months, every single thing that you find in a dispensary shelf is going to have that, and it's going to be part of it. So it's like, it's already here. They've already done that. So now let's just get rid of that THC number on there.
Oh yeah, there you go, man. Yeah, we gotta chant it down, man. I think that's important. I think that there's so many conversations with the amazing cultivators, amazing breeders, amazing retailers too. I think that's part of the it's across the whole supply chain. It's like let's just level up, and since it's already happening, let's just omit those numbers and focus on QR codes. If people want to do that due diligence, they can. But let's talk about lineage, talk about terps.
Yeah, I mean, do we think that people are not gonna buy cannabis anymore because that number's not on there?
No,
I don't know.
they might buy more. They might buy GDP again. They might mumble. Yeah, it's like it might be a good thing. It might be actually a renaissance of sorts to diversify and be like, wow, I really like linalool. I didn't know it because it was always under 20.
Yeah, and I think on something like an edible, absolutely, it's very important to have how many grams, milligrams of THC are in there for sure. But they don't tell you like as much of like, oh, how many milligrams of what type is it? It's like, and it's just, I don't know. I'm not explaining that one right, but
no, I hear what you're saying. I think potency is important, especially because it's kind of 11 hydroxy going through the gut, right? So it's like another drug, right? And you should be very upfront with potency with something like an ingestible or even like drinks and sublinguals. Like
Yeah.
those are like medicinal too, right? Some people need high potency because that's what they require for, you name it, pain relief, sleep aid, anxiety. But I think with flower, it's nuanced, and that's the other beautiful thing about it, especially with seeds or pheno-hunts or selections or cuts. There's all these, especially with sun grown too. Someone like Joy Ridge, there's, what happened that year? How did the winter come? How did the rains come? Heat.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, these are, and that's kind of part of the magic too, is the way things vary and the spectrum of variables that go into the flower of that crop that year is it's big in the wine world, and it should be the same with cannabis. And I think we'll get there. I think maybe these are part of the growing pains of leveling up and getting the feedback and having responsive policy, which is key. And a lot of room for growth. But I think what is positive and making the lemonade out of the lemons of what's could be improved upon is this is the biggest California Cannabis Awards at the California State Fair is a historic event, and it's putting cannabis on a stage with fine wine on a national and international level because of the history of the California State Fair. I think it's over 172 years. So big ups, man, and congrats on stewarding a righteous cultivar and continuing to carry that flame and for the culture, right, and for the people and for a new generation that has only known maybe purple candy gas, right? And it's going to be exciting to get them all fired up, and they'll have to take a Ferris wheel and get their heart racing because this Dutch treat is no joke, man. It's a real sativa.
Exactly. Yeah. Not just something that someone put on there like, oh, what's the effect? Yeah, it's a sativa. Sure. It's the real deal.
It's the real deal, man. Real deal, Holyfield. And it's rare. And I think it's important to keep it in the quiver for the people. And, man, we're right at the top of the hour. I could talk to you for all day, man. And I just want to say, give thanks for the time and for your work. And want to give you the last little bit of words before we jump off here. But thanks for coming on and let the people know how to support the work and keep the fire alive.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate you having me on today. It was a pleasure, and I could obviously just keep talking with you all day as well. But yeah, I just wanted to, give a shout out to my team over here, the people that are really doing the hard work that make the flower goes out to the people, and the people out there that are getting a hold of it and that are keeping us doing what we're doing too. It's been amazing. And to hear the feedback and, put a lot of time and effort into our brand over the last couple of years, and it's been a slow build, but it's nice to see that people respond to high quality grown flower, small batch, and we're just going to keep doing the good work out here, keep trying to find new things, keep bringing the same stellar quality and unique flavors that people hopefully will know Woodwide for. And hopefully there's a way one day where we can have a direct to consumer relationship like the wine industry does with their wine program. I wish we could have a group of people that we could connect to just on a one-to-one level, and then we wouldn't have to have so much lost in translation between the retail sales, and be able to really educate people on our strains and get it to them, and tell the story a little more direct to the people that are getting our finished product. But being on a podcast like this and talking to you, being on this radio program is always a good step. And I thank you for finding us and including us in this journey. So I look forward to meeting here soon at the State Fair.
Yes, I give thanks. This is Michael, Mendo Mikey Line. Big ups to Woodwide and everyone involved. And we look forward to seeing you, everybody listening. Please make the sojourn down to Sacramento, California Cannabis Awards. We're doing the big awards. The green carpet is being rolled out on Saturday. That is July 18th. And I want to shout out the Mendo Dope Boys. We were hoping to get my band out there, Ancestry Tree from Santa Cruz, but the stars will align, I think, in the future. We're looking forward to 2027. But please come and experience the magic at the California State Fair. The big awards ceremony is July 18th. And if you can't make it, there will be a live stream. And I want to say thank you to everybody keeping the culture thriving. It is a honor and a pleasure always to connect with amazing stewards and friends of cannabis on the show. Thank you, Michael. And thank you, Santa Cruz and beyond. You've been listening to The Cannabis Connection. I am your host, Christopher Carr. Have a beautiful weekend.